What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
So, Nick, Coach Khabib continues his winning ways. Umar Nurmagomedov, his cousin, had a spectacular performance last night. And look, there's a lot of similarities. He likes to take guys down and choke them out. But this guy's kick game is insane. He's doing things that we didn't see out of Khabib. And I love that Khabib is developing these fighters within his system, but letting them be themselves as well. And I was very impressed with Umar last night.
Yeah, those kicks are next level. His push kicks and teep kicks are really, really powerful. And obviously nobody's trying to reach for his legs to take him to the ground. So he's kind of free to throw whatever he wants. And his question mark kick, his whip kicks are really crazy. He touched Kelleher in the head early, I think a couple of times, and they were just sharp shots. And they looked like they were coming out of nowhere. They don't look like his body doesn't really shift a lot like how Colby Covington's did. You know, Colby has to kind of move like a counterbalance. His body, when his leg goes up, his body has to go down. Umar kind of stands right there and then just flings his legs up. This guy is nasty with the kicks. He's got some of the best kicking in the entire UFC and obviously has that Dagestani wrestling power, pressure, and top game that is absolutely to be revered.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, Brian Kelleher is a tough opponent. He's not an easy guy. He's a veteran. He's grizzled. He's tough to finish. Umar got him out of there pretty quickly and pretty easily. This guy is, he said his future is at 135, even though this short notice fight was at 145. And so that gets me thinking about potential matchups at 135. I think this guy is a problem for pretty much everybody on the roster, all the way up to and including Aljamain Sterling, the champ, and Peter Yan, who many believe is the best fighter at 135. This guy's the real deal. He's going to be around for quite some time.
Yeah, and he's got a ton of speed. There's not anybody at the bantamweight division that's got a speed advantage over him. And I would venture to say nobody has the grappling pedigree that he's got. If I were to give Colby Covington any advice, it would be to go back and watch just how quickly he sunk that rear naked choke in, because it was so fast. He was able to get his hands and his body in the position they needed to be, and the choke was so quick. I mean, Brian Kelleher had his wits about him, but he knew there was no escaping that. It was as tight as it gets. And when you see somebody at the level Umar is, and that you've got Islam and these guys coming up that are all following Khabib, and they're clearly learning everything that Khabib knew and still knows. It's scary because they're all so dynamic on the feet, and nobody wants to take them down. So they just have free range to do whatever they want on the feet because you're not going to take them down. If Umar can get his hands a little bit crisper, and he has that long game, which is fine, but he'll be able to take fighters down even easier if he gets his hands striking a little bit better, because he can close that distance and he won't have to shoot from quite as far. But look, there's not anything to critique about last night's performance. He looked like $1 million. He looked like a top contender, and I think they're going to be avoiding. They're going to have Sugar Sean O'Malley and some of their cash cows down at bantamweight avoiding him like the plague. They don't want anything to do with him. I think he's going to have a tough march to the top, but an inevitable march to top contendership. And everybody better be watching out for Umar, because the Nurmagomedov name is in there, and their division is on notice.
The Dagestan Wave is coming, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. I mean, I think for being such a small part of the world, Dagestan, where these guys are from, it could represent 20 to 25% of the UFC champions a couple of years from now. You've got Khabib's family, you've got his friends, you've got the guys that he's mentoring now. These guys are really good. And I know Chimaev is from Chechnya, but I kind of put him in that category of insane Russian wrestlers that absolutely just are avoided like the plague by everybody in their division. And I think the inevitable is coming. This grappling that they impose in the cage, the takedowns that are predicated off of getting your opponent's back against the cage and using that to advance position, finishing either with strikes or with chokes. And it's going to take a couple of years. It's like if you follow jiu-jitsu, when the Danaher Death Squad, John Danaher with Gordon Ryan and all of those guys, Gary Tonin, were leg locking everybody in the jiu-jitsu scene, it took a couple of years for people to realize even what they were doing and how to defend it to where they could start to have some success and get some of those losses back. I think we're seeing the same thing with the group out of Dagestan right now. We're seeing a group that's a couple of years ahead of where everybody else is, and it's going to take a little while for everybody, and it will happen, make no mistake about it. People will figure out the antidote to that game, and it will come out. And but for the next couple of years, I think it's going to be a Dagestani train to the top for many of these young fighters, and we're going to see quite a few of them become champions.
Yeah, and I think people like Khamzat Chimaev, even though he might not be from that same region, if you show up with a mustacheless beard and a short haircut, and you maybe wear a fluffy hat from your nation, and you represent that way, you kind of get lumped into that category. And look, it's a great category to be in. I mean, there's pretty much nobody losing from that side of the world, and I kind of think of it as the same as how when we lived in Jamaica and we spent a bunch of time down there, we noticed just how much influence Jamaican culture and music, more specifically, had on the world. Every genre that you hear has a little bit of a Jamaican flair on it. And for this tiny little rock in the Caribbean, they have such a big presence. It's the same thing with Dagestan. There's a tiny little, country on the mountainside of Russia, and they just have this global influence on the world of mixed martial arts. It's really, really impressive. Khabib obviously leads the way. Him and his dad were kind of the two guys that led the charge. But now the gates open and all of them are flooding the UFC, and they've got their inlet with Khabib helping them all come through. And aside from one little hiccup last night, which was controversial, Khabib was again flawless in his victories as a coach. And then the night was capped off with him being remembered and granted access into the Hall of Fame of the UFC.
Yeah, I was just going to say we would be remiss if we didn't mention the fact that Khabib actually got inducted into the Hall of Fame. Or I don't know if it's the induction actually, but they announced that he will be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And my feeling is that this is the first induction for Khabib. I think he's inducted as a fighter. I believe we'll see him inducted as a coach at some point in his career, because his coaching is proving to be equally as good as his fighting.
Yeah, he's just such an impressive guy, not only as a fighter, a champion, a human, but now clearly as a coach.
Most definitely. Guys, drop us a comment. Let us know, is Umar a future champion at 135? And what did you think of his performance against Kelleher? If you haven't already, a like on this video and a subscribe to the channel is always much appreciated. And we'll see you in the next one.
Peace.